It's time to set the agenda for Wednesday. Today we're looking at the quarterback battle. Where does it stand? Kind of in between scrimmages here. Brandon, what's going on with the quarterback battle? Where do you think it stands today?
Well, I think Jarrett Stidham is the favorite to win the job still. Auburn, of course, scrimmaged on Monday, actually, before they scrimmaged on Saturday once again. Both quarterbacks kind of shaky. Gus Malzahn said they had numerous things to fix. But Sean White may have had like the better day, but it wasn't all that much better. And I think at this point, the coaches are going to want to side with the upside of Jarrett Stidham. I don't think Sean White can really do anything in this last hurrah, these last few days, to really stand up and say, I should be the starting quarterback. I think Jarrett Stidham proved himself in the spring, and he's kind of furthering that a little bit now because Sean White hasn't really just flashed beyond what he's been able to do the last 2 years as Auburn's quarterback.
Well, Sean White would have to probably show something different than what's on film already. They know what they're going to get. They know his upside. His arm is just not going to be, you've joked about him being rookie of the year, but his arm's not going to magically be stronger now. Jarrett has kind of that advantage built in where he has a better arm, and that I think fits what Chip Lindsey wants to do with this system. New offensive coordinator makes sense that he kind of start from scratch, pick his quarterback, as opposed to having to rely on a guy. Sean has more experience, but I think in this case, that doesn't give him as much of an advantage maybe as it would normally.
Yeah, I agree with that. Jarrett Stidham is a little bit fresher. I mean, you can even tell it when they're out there throwing. And just from looking at it, without them doing any competing, just watching them warm up, it's obvious that Jarrett Stidham has the better arm, the better poise, the better body of a quarterback you would expect in the SEC.
And Sean, I mean, always that now with his injuries, there's always that inherent risk. I think there's always going to be, he could be as healthy as he can be right now. There's probably going to be always that doubt in the back of the mind. Can he last a season? What's going to happen on the next play? And I think that's going to, he said he was going to try to fight that, but I think that's a hard thing to fight after he's had so many in such little time.
Absolutely.
Now we go kind of a bonus round. What if Sean White had been healthy in the spring? What do you think would have been? Would anything have been different with this quarterback competition?
I don't think so. In fact, I think if Sean White was healthy during the spring, Jarrett Stidham would have been better, and Jarrett Stidham would have been named the starter after spring practice, and there would not have been a quarterback competition going into the summer. I think the coaches would have seen enough, and they would have made that decision. Question is, would they have to think in the back of their head, if we do this, Sean White might transfer,
right,
and then we don't really have a true backup that we could trust. So maybe they wouldn't have. But I think at that point it would have been clear to the coaches, you have to name him the starter.
I think, I still think it would have gone into the fall. I think that Sean we've talked about this, has so much respect from his teammates, is well liked in that locker room. If he's healthy, he's showing that he's, capable of leading the team like he did. He doesn't have a bad win-loss record in the SEC. And I think that it would have, it would have given him a little bit more momentum. I think it killed him not being able to step on the field, and Stidham's kind of de facto the guy in the spring. So I think it still could have carried on. And especially, just like you said, you run the risk of having him check out over the summer. What happens if he's gone for 3 months? Does he come back? I mean, you don't know. You can't necessarily keep him in the stable.
It's very true. I mean, if you look back at what Sean White's been through, at some point you would just throw your hands up if you were not named the starter and go, absolutely, I'm going to go try myself somewhere else where I could probably play. I mean, he could play on Division I level. We know that. I mean, he led the SEC in so many categories last season. And I'll say this, from talking to some people behind closed doors, the players don't really have a favorite for this race. They believe maybe it's closer than what it actually is, but I think the coaches know what exactly they're going to do and who's going to end up being the starter. But what's interesting is the players aren't really taking sides really in this. In fact, if anything, they're taking more Sean White's side because they know him.
And we'll see what happens as this week kind of wraps up and we go into that second scrimmage. That's it for today's agenda. Join us for tomorrow as we look at the assistant coaches. What's the key questions that we have for them later this week?